I know that there have been times where, like, to your point, you get busy and then you're like, somebody else wants to kind of, come see a house, or maybe it becomes unavailable or whatever happens. You're like, oh, thank God I don't have,
Yeah.
because you're trying to balance it all out. And you're right. If you're hitting that moment, then you are not properly leveraged. I want to know what you laughing at, bro.
I don't know.
You just over here giggling.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where like something tickled. It just was
Okay.
funny. I don't know.
All right, you guys. I'm telling you what. This has been a week. Lewis is over here just giggling for no reason. I'm like, "What you laughing at?" He's like, "I don't know." So that makes you immediately feel subconscious. Like, is there something that I don't know
Yeah.
that you're laughing
And then you start
about
off the
me?
show like, I want to know. Like, I truthfully don't know. I
You're
don't know.
just in
It
a
just
good
happens
mood.
sometimes. Sometimes you just need that giggle.
Just a
Right?
little giggle. Okay. All right. Well, with that being said, hey guys, welcome to Real Estate First Friday. My name is Matthew Hodge, Executive Vice President here at LPT Realty, joined by my co-EVP, Lewis Furman, who has been grinding this week. We
Yeah.
normally have busy weeks, but I know you've been really humping.
It's been a good week, man. I
Yeah.
mean, last week we were away.
Yeah.
So, this month is naturally getting consolidated. Next week there's Inman and
Yep.
more events taking place. So it's a very strange July.
Yeah.
It's what I would call a 1 week, 2 week month of July with another 2 weeks worth of travel.
Yeah.
So it's been crazy.
Yeah, we got another travel week next week, and for me, bleeds into the following week. So, gonna be being busy. Hey, do you celebrate Christmas in July? Is that a thing for you? I don't know how that started. Anyways, all right. With that being said, we are going to also bring in Isacc Guzman, who is our special guest today. And one thing that I want to just say about Real Estate First Fridays is that, there are people who constantly hone their craft, and they realize that they have to continue to educate themselves in terms of what's working today as new things are happening, what's happening in the market, like all of those things. So tuning into Motivational Monday, Real Estate First Friday, all of those things are so important because it allows you to continue to understand how to shape your business. And I get it. Maybe that doesn't turn into like, hey, I want to start selling more transactions, or I don't want to increase my, like, maybe there's nothing you want to do with it. But if you don't even do this, then technically your business starts to go backwards. So you constantly have to kind of swim at a certain speed forward. And so we always appreciate the fact that people continue to, attend these live trainings, throughout the week, understand how to use LPT tools, and then hear from experts on what they're doing to be successful in today's market. We know that really truthfully shapes the business, and it continues to even shape me and my business in the leadership role that I'm in. It continues to help me too. So just want to say that quick appreciation.
Yeah, it's always fun. I mean, even sitting here in this chair, I mean, we are constantly like just snagging nuggets, from the conversations that we have here today. And today we're joined by Isacc Guzman, who I would say has led some of the biggest lead generation teams that our industry has seen. So being able to sit down with him to kind of hear some of his this niche that he's been able to focus on and get some of his expertise is going to be a lot of fun here today.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and bring you in. I believe you are in California. So good morning, Isaac. How are you?
Yes, sir. California. I'm doing well,
Yes.
man. How are you guys?
Good, man.
Good.
Awesome. Good to be with you today. So real quick, we always like to start off with just helping the audience understand, who you are, kind of your experience in real estate, and then ultimately, what are we going to be talking through today?
Yeah, I mean, I started in real estate selling software to real estate agents and brokerages and stuff like that. So that's how I got to know the industry. Our company got bought by Showing Time, actually. And so I had some time and some money to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was like, these real estate agents, they spend money like they got it. They must make money, right? So got into real estate, started doing the wholesale investment side, and then quickly got my license after a few years. Joined a team, was on a team for a while, and then ended up getting into leadership at my office. Became a team leader. We built that into the number one franchise in Southern California for its brand. Then when I helped a buddy build a really big team, we became the number one team in the world at another cloud-based brokerage, which was fun. And really my whole focus has been, let me find talented people, bring them into the organization, give them the resources that they need, whether that's leads, training, tech stack, the support that they need on the back end, and just be obsessed with giving them what they need to win.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, okay, so that gives us some understanding of your level of expertise. It sounds like you've been through all parts of the business, not only from like a vendor side, then into real estate, wholesale side, team leader, team member, all of the things. So what are we talking through today?
Yeah, I mean, when Lewis was asking me about it, I literally just picked up from what I was working on with my team. One of the big challenges that we have is like endless showings,
Yeah.
right? We get leads. We do really well at converting them, and I can talk on that. But what I've found is like that little pebble doesn't really mess things up at the top of funnel. Where it really where it messes up your whole life is when that little pebble gets deep enough in the funnel that it clogs and jams everything above it. Right? Nothing else comes through. And what I mean by that is that buyer, that three or four buyers that you have that are pre-approved, out shopping, but you just can't seem to get them over the finish line, right? They have excuses, they have challenges, they're getting in their own way. Stuff like that it gums up the works because what we don't realize sometimes is I don't actually want to convert more of my online leads or my open house leads or my referral leads, whatever the source is. Sometimes you don't want to convert them into clients subconsciously because you're like, I don't want a sixth unhappy client. I don't want a seventh person that I'm out shopping with every weekend, right? So we will actually sabotage our business and our conversion when we're not clearing out the now business in a fast enough way. And then we get frustrated, we get flustered, we start second guessing ourselves, right? Am I actually any good at this? Are my clients going to fire me today? You like if you get anxiety when your clients call you, like that's a problem, right? Because you're like, ah, man, I think I'm failing them. Today might be the day they fire me, or they tell me they're in escrow because they found something that I couldn't find them. And so the big part of that is understanding and having a systematic approach to getting people under contract faster without showing them endless number of houses. Um, so that's what we're going to be focused on.
Yeah, and I like that it's a unique concept because I know that there have been times where, like, to your point, you get busy and then you're like somebody else wants to kind of, come see a house, or maybe it becomes unavailable or whatever happens, you're like, oh, thank God I don't have,
Yeah.
because you're trying to balance it all out. And you're right, if you're hitting that moment, then you are not properly leveraged, and so you are rooting for certain things to not continue to move forward because you can't handle all of it moving forward at the same time, and that does create a different kink in the business. And that's what we talk about, those dips and those peaks and valleys, as another way to think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, for sure. So this is such an interesting concept too, because it's how often are we like compromising our own business, right? Like when we're starting off and our pipelines are a little bit on the smaller side, we believe that our superpower is our accessibility, right? A customer is going to reach out to me. I'm going to work with the customer and I'm going to show them that I will forever and always be available to all of their needs and all of their desires. And it may work when you're working with one or two customers, but that's not scalable. We have to be able to find a system and a solution that could be very much granular and precisical with our ability to work that particular consumer. So excited to jump on in, Isaac.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I didn't have like a formal presentation or anything like that for this because I think it's more of like a concept to dialogue, right? And it's not like a start to finish. The way that I look at a lot of these techniques or a lot of these strategies is it's kind of like having a file cabinet where you have different folders with different techniques in it. And based on where you're at in the scenario, you go, oh, okay, based on this, let me go find that file, right? And here's what I'll talk through. So the first thing that I always talk about is get over the ALM. And here's what I mean. A lot of us that work a lot of leads, we're taught this script. So initially we were taught something called LP Mama, right? Location, price, motivation, agent, mortgage appointment, right? Like we were taught that kind of framework to basically grill the consumer right when we first talk to them. Right. And now we got entities like Zillow and stuff like that are like, hey, you need to just go and show. And what they're really advocating for is meeting the consumer where they're at. So that's the first step is meet the consumer where they're at and make deposits before you make withdrawals. Real estate's a relationship industry, right? It's a relationship business. And so when building relationships, you have to realize that everything's a relationship banking account. There's a banking system that comes with relationships. We call it the relationship equity account, right? Like John Cheplack's the guy who kind of exposed me to the reality of this truth, which is Everybody with whom you have a relationship, you have some kind of balance. And that balance is either positive or negative, right? If you have that family member or friend that calls and you roll your eyes because you know the only thing they want is to ask you for something, they've never called you with good news. They've never called you to say, hey, I got you some tickets to the game, right? They've always only called to ask. The reality is they're overdrawn on their relationship account with you. And so the name of the game for all of this is let me make deposits so that when it gets sticky, so that when I have to put the screws to you, so that when I have to hold you accountable to what you told me you wanted in a home, and we just saw three that match your criteria, but somehow you're not writing an offer. When it's there, that's withdrawal time. And I need to have a positive bank balance with you in order to kind of put that pressure on you, right? Strangers don't have any business coming and telling me what to do, but some of my best friends can grill me, right? And it's because they have a high balance in our relationship. So that said, whenever we're meeting with buyers, the first thing you want to do is meet them wherever they're at. If that's go show them the property, great. Let me make that deposit first so that once we're walking out of there and I go, hey, before we go out next week, because I'm so glad we saw this house. I learned so much, right? I learned it wasn't a waste of time. This is a really good use of our time, all this stuff. Before we go out, I need you to go through the pre-approval process. I'm going to connect you with my lender, right? However you make that introduction. That's a withdrawal. You're telling them to do something. So I like to always start off there is, hey, meet them where they're at. And the best example I can give is the one that a lot of people hate, which is go show them a property without them being pre-approved. I'm probably preaching against a lot of your guys' coaches, a lot of your own beliefs, but I'm telling you, if you just make that deposit, I'm not saying show them endlessly, right? But show them one time, make the deposit, build a positive balance. Then you can make all the withdrawals you can, right? That makes sense. And that's how banking works. My 5-year-old, he's 9 now, but I remember when my son was 5, he's like, Dad, take me to the bank. Like, for what? He's like, I want to get some money. I'm like, do you have an account that I don't know about? Like, what's going on? Right? And I had to tell him, look, there's 2 ways to get money out of the bank. You have to make deposits, build up a positive balance, and then you can make withdrawals, right? The other way is like you show up with a gun and a ski mask and a getaway driver. But at 5 years old, I'm not advising that, right?
Yeah,
So
for
yeah.
sure.
That's interesting. You know, it's funny that you said that because I one day I same exact thing. I was writing a check and my son saying he's like, "What is that?" I was like, "Oh, I got to give this to your mom to deposit." And he goes, "You can make your own money?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, yeah, you can, but it doesn't work the way you're seeing it right now." But yeah, it's interesting to explain that concept. But I like the way that you break that down, which is having these deposits and credits because the concept of when you are first meeting someone is that you are trying to sell them on you first, right? And so when you're selling them on you first, yeah, that means that I'm going to do something for you. That thing I may do for you is satisfy this curiosity or take you to this home that you requested to see. Is it going to be the home that you want to ultimately purchase, the very first one? Like, we know the percentage of that even happening is so low. Like, I've never seen any other house. I'm just going to buy the very first house I see. So that's not the real point of you going, right? The point of you going is to get them to say yes to you. You are the first sale. And then once you've done that, once you've built up some of that equity, like you said, then you can start asking for things. Hey, I've done this for you. Here's what we need to do to continue to move forward. And a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, hey, if you aren't down here, if you're not absolutely ready to sign on the dotted line today, I don't want to waste my time with you. But that's so unrealistic that that scenario would actually happen, that people shoot themselves in the foot. So I love that you call that out that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're for sure leaving a lot of, opportunities on the table because you can't enter into that initial interaction with your sole mission being, how do I ultimately help them buy or sell a house? Your sole mission when you are first getting introduced to a consumer is, how do I sell them on myself?
Correct.
You got to sell you first before you can ultimately help them sell a house. And you don't want to fall into that trap. We sometimes over-index with our presentations. Hey, I'm going to this buyer audition. Hey, I'm going to this listing presentation. I'm going to overly prepare, what it means to buy and sell a house, but we're forgetting upon the notion of how am I selling myself, especially with how the lead is coming in, so let me put it this way, for some of us that work a lot of sphere-based business, SOI business, we don't necessarily have to focus on selling ourselves just because we've already built that relationship organically over time. So if it's like a family member, a father, a mother, a brother, whatever the case may be, we may not need to focus on that. So then when we do get a lead that comes from a place that requires us to focus on that, we may forget that skill skill set is necessary.
Yeah.
If we are, gaining access with some of these online lead portals, for example, these are people that are coming in through your database with no relationship in their inner circles. Because if they did have a you in the inner circles, they would have been speaking to them, but they're not. So they're reaching out to a portal. You're capturing their data. What does that mean? That they may very well be working with other agents. How often do we coordinate a listing presentation for tomorrow? We show up, and next thing you know, there's somebody there before us doing a presentation. There's somebody there after us doing a presentation. Now it's who are they going to feel most comfortable with? And if we lose that hour and a half opportunity to sell ourselves, we're going to lose it to the agent that came before us or came after us, because we need to build that relationship. We need to build that rapport in a very consolidated moment in time.
Yeah, I'm gonna introduce two thoughts. One, when you're thinking about this process, when you're thinking about, hey, I don't have time to go show this person who may not be qualified for, to purchase this home. When you really think about it, when you say I don't have time, really what you're battling is like, I don't feel like doing it. Like, I don't want to take the risk that this may not be, something that, produces a result. It's really that you have the time, you just don't feel like doing it. And so when you really think about that and you start to analyze it, you start to understand what part of your psyche you really kind of need to address. But to your point, Lewis, I kind of want to take the devil's advocate role, which is that, when people have their SOI, their sphere of influence, and they are like, oh, I don't really kind of need to do these things because this person knows me, I think that's a massive opportunity missed.
For sure.
Anytime I'm working with someone that I already know, whether it's a family member, I'm running them through the same professional process that I do when someone has no idea about me, because, you're doing something different. Like, yes, maybe what brought you to me was our personal relationship, but now we are engaging on a business transaction, and I want to ensure that I represent myself and represent you at the highest level and ensure that you get the best experience. And so that does kind of click things over.
Yeah.
And so, be careful how much you take for granted that someone may know you. And while I get it, it's not necessarily as required as much. It's a missed opportunity for you to really wow them and inspire referrals.
Yeah, you always want to be consistent with your approach.
Yeah.
Even though you feel like it's that slam dunk event, that family member is going to use you to list their house. Like, walk them through the listing presentation,
right.
Walk them through the process. You are inciting inside of them. Like, what if they have somebody in their sphere that this becomes a reminder of what you do that then sparks them to foster that referral? Like, you always want to be consistent with your approach. And just because it's the slam dunk, like, don't press the easy button.
That's right.
Just because it is. Like, put in the work each and every time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Isaac, so real quick, to go back to your point, so you've got these balances, these debits and credits. How do you start to know when you are maybe withdrawing too much? You haven't stored up enough credit. Like, what are you looking for when you are coaching your agents through this process?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is what I'm looking for is if they're unwilling to answer questions. That is the number one sign, I would say, in any relationship, whether it's with your kids or your spouse or your client, is somebody's not willing to answer questions that you're asking them. The reason why is because here's why. You somehow sent them a signal that you're trying to manipulate them by the way you're asking questions or by the questions you ask, right? If you're the person who's like, gotcha, right? Like that, they think that that's coming and they will stop answering questions, right? Because like, let me verbally trap you to where you have to agree with me ends up becoming a very dark place in a relationship. Right. And so like, that's what you kind of notice is they stop answering quickly and it's question based. Now, if you're not asking questions, that's a whole different problem. Right. But that's usually the number one indicator. They're not doing that. And the other thing is this, if they're not giving you the same level of feedback that they once did, right? It's because you're making too many withdrawals. You're no longer a trusted advisor. And you're now at a bank balance. And actually, the easy way to wrap around it is, are they treating you the way that you treat that family member that you avoid? You're like, hi, what's up? Hi, good to see you again. Uh-huh. Like try not to make eye contact with you. Like those types of things are easy. Like we read those in the room, right? Um, but the other thing is this, is if they're going on endlessly in the showing arena, there has to be a time where, and you have to save your ammunition. You have to pick your battles, right? I'm not going to rebut them all the time on everything they say, right? And it's what we call well versus what. Okay, so you tell me interest rates are high. A lot of us, our immediate reaction is to jump into a well statement. Here's what I mean by that. Well, did you know that in 1986 that interest rates are 18% and that you should be so lucky to get a 6.5%? Like, yeah, that's all true, but all you did was make them wrong, right? All you did was make a withdrawal saying you need to listen to my fact, right? Versus, okay, tell me what interest rate, how that impacts you. What interest rate do you think you're looking for? What matters most to you? Is it actually the monthly payment or the actual number on the paper that shows your interest rate? Like when we build that default to move away from a well into a what, we actually are making another deposit instead of a withdrawal. And so that's a big, big challenge that we run into a lot is like just because we know better doesn't mean we have to put them in their place, right? There's you can be right or get what you want, but rarely both. Something I teach my son right now. I'm teaching him and arguing with my wife. I'm like, listen, buddy, I get it. Maybe you didn't spill that water. Maybe it was your younger brother. But like, dude, it'll take you 15 seconds to clean it up, then you get to move on with your day, right? Stop fighting for that principal part of, but I'm right. Let's help them get through the next, let's help them get what they're looking for. You can get what you're looking for, right? But yeah, that's how I would address that for
Yeah,
sure.
and I think that makes sense too, is because you, through that process, you start to really understand what their objection is. And so, in your example here, where someone is maybe throwing up some apprehension around the interest rate, well, do they really care about interest rates? Well, maybe not. They either one are reacting to how much the monthly affordability is going to be, like, hey, I'm just really kind of worried about the payment, or they're just thinking like, hey, I've just heard that it's interest rates are high, so I don't want to feel duped into buying at a time that it's not smart. You have to address something else, because a lot of times the very first thing that they're saying is not the root thing. So you're right. If you go and attack that thing, well, hey, just so you know, this 6.5, and you approach it, you're right. You are shutting them down. You are going to head to head. But if you stand alongside them and say, well, hey, what about that? To your point, is it monthly payments? Is it how much you're paying over the life for the, like, what's the concern here? And then it gives you the opportunity to really address that particular thing, again, as a side by side experience, as an advisor, not someone, to your point, who's just shutting them down so that you can then push your own agenda on them, which is sell them a house, right? Like that starts to feel icky to people if you do that too much. They're like, this guy doesn't care about me. He just wants to make a commission. But if you flip it the other way, where you really address their concerns, you really understand from a place of understanding and value, then you're not gonna hit those tripwires.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun looking at it through that deposit and withdrawal lens,
Yeah.
because we sometimes don't like look at our relationships in that fashion, like in terms of the relationships that we build in terms of preserving it, because we could fall into the trap of working with a lot of consumers. We then forget to maintain these relationships. We're pulling out too many withdrawals without making appropriate deposits. And then what happens is we're working with these consumers, and the worst thing that happens is they start working with another agent. How often has that happened where we've spent time showing a property to a consumer, and next thing you know, they've ghosted us. And when we revisit them or we reconnect, they're excited because they just closed on their house. And wait a minute, what about me?
What? Right.
What happened? Like,
Yeah.
where was I in the process? And it's probably because we did too many withdrawals and not enough deposits, and we didn't recognize that we were doing it. Like, I love the what in the well analogy, because we don't recognize that the well is a withdrawal
Yeah.
in that relationship preservation focus point versus a deposit. So that's really cool.
Okay, so we'll kind of move to the last thing here. We've got just a few minutes left, and so because you're dealing with so many different lead sources, I know you're dealing with online portals, you're dealing with sphere of influence, your social leads, all those things. Do you find that there's any real meaningful, I guess, approach in the initial conversations, or is it pretty much all the same?
Yeah, so the initial approach has to be figuring out a few different things. So like every good call there's a flow. There's an intro where you let them know who you are, what you're calling about, and what this conversation should consist of. And then a lot of times we jump into like a very half-baked discovery. And discovery is where you're actually going to get all the stuff that you need. And so there's actually like a few categories of discovery that you need to make sure you hit in a good, thorough conversation with the lead, right? And so it's what's their motivation? And by the way, you all know all these motivation, timeline, pain that they're looking to avoid, all right. Consequence of waiting, as other decision makers in financing. Those are what we call, like on our team, we train those. There's the six categories of discovery. And when I figure those out, what I do is Because what a lot of us do is we just look at criteria because we
Yeah.
think my next task is I'm going to set a safe search. I need bed bath, I need square footage, I need this thing, and therefore I'm done. I'm all good. And I don't know that the thing that they're trying to avoid is feeling like they overpaid because their brother-in-law bought in 2019 and then refinanced in 2021. So you got a 2019 price with a 2021 interest rate and feels like a genius, even though it was pure luck. But and they don't want to look dumb compared to that brother-in-law. Like these are the real stories that slow us down sometimes, and you wouldn't know it unless you spend that time. Also, the consequence of waiting, understanding the implications of making a move or not. Right now, we are in an industry or a real estate economy, I would call it, of a needs-based or a needs-based real estate industry. Meaning, if you don't need to, you're not going to, right? That's where we've been for 4 years. And so if I don't understand what's really motivating you, what's the pain, all these different things, then I don't know that I have the, and I'm going to use a strong word and you might take it the wrong way out there in the audience, but you need leverage. And if I don't spend enough time in discovery, I don't have the leverage in my conversations. I can't do that. Hey, remember when you said, or can you remind me when you said this thing was really, really important to you, but somehow $500 is about to blow up all of that because the toilet, right? Like these are the things we need to help them understand, but we need to get them out first, right? And so that's where it's spending time in discovery more than you think you need to is really the important part for that. The other piece I'll say is this: understanding consumer behavior is not what it was. The most significant thing, in my opinion, that happened that's long lasting in the real estate industry in 2008 and 2007, 2008 wasn't the crash. It was the iPhone because the iPhone changed the way everyone buys everything. Like you want to buy something, here's what you do. You go, hey, I'm thinking about buying something. You pull out this thing, you go to some big marketplace, you scroll, 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 you click, 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 you look at some pictures, you go, I want this on my doorstep in 48 hours, or I'm losing my mind. Right? Like, is that not how we all consume now? And then we get shocked when someone's like, I want to buy a house. I'm going to pull out this thing. I'm going to go to this big marketplace called Zillow or Realtor.com or whatever. I'm going to scroll, 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 click, 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 and I need to be in that house in 24 hours. Like that's what they expect, not because any other reason than that's how they've been trained to consume. And so if I can build my business around, let me go out, let me meet you where you're at, make that deposit because the deposit is, I want to see this house. Hey, thanks so much. Lewis, when would you like to see the home? 4:30? Awesome. Let me go ahead and get working on it. I just made a deposit because that's what you wanted. You're getting the customer service experience that you expected. Is it the right one? Is it the one I would advise? No. Go get pre-approved first, obviously, but that's not the way they consume, right? And so that's what I would say is if your main goal is spend a good significant amount of time in discovery, but guess what? Discovery is a form of withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you to give me information. I'm receiving. That is a withdrawal. So what you have to do is frame every script, every call around what is it that you called me for? Was it a home value? Was it to learn more about what your neighbor is doing with their house as you come into my open house as a neighbor? Whatever it is you're here for, I need to make sure that you either get it or know that I'm committed to getting it to you. Then I get to make my withdrawals.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, man. I love this concept. I want to bring you back on because I want to ask some additional questions around, you know, when you're going through this process of trying to get the discovery, right? Like I get it. Like someone walks in the very so let's say this example. Hey, you called me. You said you want to see this house tomorrow. I say, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm trying to get my debit. So my credit. So I'm going to go ahead and just show them that. But when I get there, now that I got them, I want to get all this information, right? And that can still feel really icky. So I want to bring you back to walk us through how do you extract that information without pulling
100%.
too much at a time, so that they feel like, ew, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
Like, why do you need to know all that? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just want to see this house, because there is that element to it still where
Oh, yeah.
they don't necessarily realize that you're investing in the relationship at that time. They're still just solving the need. And, again, the consumer experience, to your point, is that people just want what they want, right? And not because they've become spoiled or anything wrong. It's just technology and convenience, and all that has allowed us the opportunity of saying, hey, I can get things faster. And so if you look at that in negative way, then you'll start to feel like, oh gosh, this guy just, wants wants what he wants. But I love that concept of saying, hey, let me go ahead, meet you here, meet you where you are. I know the proper steps. I know what's going to make you most successful in this process. But if I go out there today, that's going to feel like a withdrawal. So I'm going to meet you where you are, and then I'm going to slowly start to educate you. And through that process, we're going to build a relationship where you're going to trust me, and then we're going to have successful sales. So I love how you've put that all together. So we'll bring you back to get some additional details on how you're integrating, how you're getting that pull from that without getting too much. So thank you so much for your time today. Very much appreciate you taking the time. Louis, any final words?
Yeah, no, I mean, we started off the show saying that we sit here and acquire nuggets, and I can tell you my next few calls today, I'm going to look at it through the lens of deposits and withdrawal. Like, have I made enough deposits before I can execute that withdrawal? So it's going to be fun to get through my day today with this in the front of my mind.
Yeah, I'm going to think about that when I go home to the wife. I'm going to be like, have I done enough today to ask for anything?
Better get that brisket ready.
Right, yeah. Cool. Well, I hope you guys have a blessed and prosperous weekend. We will see you this Monday for Motivational Monday, where I'll be joined by Robert Palmer, founder and CEO. Have a great weekend.